still gonna whisper when we start the stream. Welcome everyone to CASAA Live. We're back. Alex, we're back.
We're back.
We are back. This is officially season 3 of CASAA Live, you guys. Season 3 of CASAA Live. If we were a Netflix show, this would be season 3 of CASAA Live. Welcome everybody. I see some familiar faces in chat already. Michael, Peggy, Adrian, welcome. Yeah, we're back. This is going to be kind of our first official I guess episode, live stream, whatever, of this this congressional session, considering we take off the summer just like all of our policymakers do as well. We do have some news to talk about. We got some things going on. And a lot of this, though, is just going to be kind of like a catch up from some newsworthy things, some stuff that happened over the summer. I know Alex has some stuff to talk about. I have some articles and things to go over. Kristen is hopefully going to be joining us at some point. She's experiencing some technical difficulties with her computer that has apparently vexed her. That's what we were told, that she was being vexed by her computer. Otherwise, I guess that's really, I don't know how to do this anymore, man. I don't know, do I have an opening shtick? I don't even remember the ending shtick. I'm gonna wing it when we get there, but
I think it's all welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and you know, we'll get right to it.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure more than that.
You know, it's been a few months since we've actually talked on screen, so I'm sure there's a little bit of like, hey, how was your summer, you know, stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. Hey Alex, how was your summer? Are we gonna make Jim mad if we do?
Probably.
Hey, how are you?
Probably. I mean, we're 2 minutes into the broadcast here and we haven't gotten any policy discussion, so
yeah, Jim's already livid.
Yeah,
we'll hear about it in the board meeting. It's okay.
But I had a good summer. I kept busy all summer. There wasn't a lot going on legislatively, which unfortunately means there's a few things that I missed, things that happened, and Indiana being one of them. Illinois enacted an indoor smoke-free air law. There was an announcement about that with some really horrible quotes. No one in opposition was quoted in this article. And this, I think, kind of snuck up on us. And it's Illinois. So not so sure what could have been done. But Illinois has officially banned vaping indoors, just like smoking. And I'm looking at the article to see when that takes effect. I don't know if that was immediately or if it happened recently. It could be at the beginning of the year. Who knows? Someone knows. It's out there, and I just didn't do the research. So sorry about Illinois, but it's been our experience that even our members don't get all that bent out of shape about an indoor vaping ban. So and it's something we all know is that people get around it anyway because you can vape discreetly. It's not a cigarette. So
yeah, you know what term I haven't heard in a long time is stealth vaping.
Yeah,
stealth vaping was like this big thing at one point.
Well, I mean, we made a conscious decision to not use that word because it sounds like sort of like we're encouraging people to kind of break the rules. But the reality is that you can use these products discreetly, which is just a fact. And so it's good advice for anybody, no matter where you are. If you're in a place where you don't know what the policy is, if you don't want to ask and be told no, then usually people just vape discreetly, and no one is bothered because it's not smoking, and it actually smells kind of pleasant. But yeah, no, I did things over the summer, kept active, kept my brain active. I was in a play. Actually,
yeah, that's incredible.
That was fun.
And you also I was just gonna mention, I don't know, I'm not gonna like blow up your spot here or anything, but everybody out there, Alex is quite the talented artist. I follow you on your social media with your art and stuff, and every time I'm just like doom scrolling, and I'll see like your art has a certain flavor to it, and it'll stop me and be like, oh, that's Alex. Like,
nice. I'm glad you enjoy it. I've got a couple pieces back here.
Yeah.
This is actually, so this one is from an old, I think, Salem ad, and I'm not going to zoom in on it, but it's a guy helping a rocket ship. Actually, it's a boat. It's a cruise ship out of the water. It's where rocket boats are born.
Rocket boats.
Yeah. And that's from an old Newport, or either Newport or Salem. I can't remember.
You are quite the artsy fellow there, sir.
I enjoy it. So yeah, I had a pop-up show at the beginning of August, and then the play was in August. And then as soon as I was done with the play, there was the FDA listening session. And it was kind of good to have all of that sort of like very public stuff going on. And then 4 minutes in front of the FDA, I actually feel like it went well. And I got the last word too. I was the last one to speak on the day. So we'll get into that in a little bit as well. But how was your summer?
Dirty. No, I kind of took I don't know, like an unpaid promotion this year. For folks who don't know, I'm a landscaper. But I really got to kind of, I guess, be artistic more so this year with that, and take charge on a lot of our new smaller installs and things like that. So I've been extra busy, getting kind of my hand into some of the design for people, and just kind of expanding, I guess, what I do. Other than that, though, really, I've been doing a lot more like streaming on Twitch and things like that. So that was good. The kids had a great summer. We just recently went camping up in Ontario. We went up to Henderson, Rays Bay, which is kind of the eastern side of Ontario, Lake Ontario. Beautiful. Spent a whole weekend up there right on the lake. It was fantastic. And then, kids just started school, so I'm sure everybody's feeling that. I feel like the Northeast, we start so much later than a lot of other areas do. And I know that's like seasonal and whatever, for people, but yeah, so it's just been crazy. It's just been busy, but like good busy. You know what I mean? Not like the kind of busy where you just want to rip your hair out, but like good busy. But yeah. Other than that, man, just working along.
Nice. Well, we'll for sure probably get back to the rip your hair out busy in January and February once state legislatures come back into session. There's a few that are still up and running, and we've got a Kristen, maybe, almost.
We have the screen of a Kristen. There we have a Kristen.
I don't know what is going on with this thing.
It vexed you.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I was vexed.
We'll just do some live audio checks, and
I am
you sound great. You sound great. Welcome. Alex and I just did welcome to CASAA Live, Kristen.
I was listening on my phone because I couldn't get on my computer, and now I have no sound, so I can hear you, but you're really, really, really quiet. So I'm going to try to figure out what that is. But I'm not. Sorry, I had this all set up.
Well, we'll try to keep things going here,
and then all of a sudden,
we'll try to keep things going while you work out some volume issues. And of course, you don't need to hear us to say, how was your summer, Kristen?
I can barely hear you. It was good. It's been a little crazy, and we had a lot of fun. We did some camping, and that's pretty much it. Antiquing, hitting the thrift shops, one of my favorite things to do. Got some cool stuff this year, and just kind of a nice chill summer. We've got one more weekend. We're going to go camping in mid-October. That'll be the last one of the year, and then we have to drag everything back out again. The setup and the takedown is like the hard part, especially getting it in and out of our yard.
Sure. Yeah.
That is a trick. Hi, everybody in chat. Sorry you had to wait.
I figured the grassroots AF banner was really appropriate for this moment. So
good timing.
Yeah, I just I thought that was good. But yeah, Alex, if you want to get this this summer recap discussion train rolling, you've got the floor.
Yeah, so I just picked out a few stories that have popped up, and some Kristen gathered this for us in a doc before we came together, and I got a couple that we didn't have on the thing, but I poking around on this. The first thing that I came to was this gem that the AVM posted on Twitter yesterday, actually. 22nd Century Group, everybody's favorite unfun cigarette company, is kind of in the toilet. They have other things going on other than reduced fun cigarettes, but their stock is in the toilet even after a reverse stock split, which is they had to buy back outstanding shares. It was 1 for 15. And just to remain in compliance with the NASDAQ, and they're still, pushing below $1 here. And this is 22nd Century. If you follow the market at all, or on Twitter, you'll see that the sort of Wall Street bros that'll post a tweet up every now and then, about some announcement out of 22nd Century. Let's see if I can get there. No. I wasn't able to do. Oh, I got to bring it back up. That's what I got to do. It's kind of a pump and dump kind of stock, right? Like it's been below $4 for as long as I've been tracking it. With the reverse stock split, it actually looks like at some point it hit $90. It did not. That's just things being adjusted for math purposes. But as it turns out, and as everybody suspected, it doesn't sound like their reduced nicotine cigarettes are selling all that well, but their stock still moves on news. Like recently, they announced that they secured some deal to sell unironically, a convenience store in Montana called the Town Pump, and that is this little number. This is a weekly chart. So this green bar right here is on the 7th. That's the week of the 17th. This was the announcement that they secured this like Midwestern distribution. This is the market and traders reacting. You can see this huge volume bar here. It's like the most volume ever traded on this stock for a couple of years at least, and then quickly back down into the toilet because nobody likes very low nicotine cigarettes. And all of this sort of accompanied with, other announcements on their website. I think this is all just so disingenuous. And I can't believe, and it's not that I can't believe, it's just that they're sort of, I can't find the page on my list of things here. Oh, here we go. This was an announcement about the Montana convenience store, and this statement here about how they're selling their cigarettes in 80 Town Pump convenience stores. This will provide an effective solution for adult smokers willing to break the chains of nicotine addiction. I don't know about you, but that sounds to me like a therapeutic claim. It's not a modified risk claim. It's a therapeutic claim. And this is stuff like FDA, when they got their MRTP, FDA got behind it and required them to say something like this can help reduce the amount of nicotine you consume, which is really just towing the line of therapeutic claim. And this is for a combustible cigarette. So if anybody needs kind of like, an example of how twisted all of the regulation is and how FDA is handling this situation, 22nd Century is probably the best example of that. And of course, the sort of imminent failure of this product. The other thing that's really kind of funny is that on their home screen, if I can do this without screwing it up, which I doubt I can, on their home screen, they actually have a countdown clock to New Zealand implementing their nicotine reduction policy. So in 1 year, 6 months, and 22 days, I don't know if you want to play the market.
Really banking on New Zealand to save the day here.
What's that?
They're really banking on New Zealand to save the day here.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing has been all about FDA, finalizing a reduced nicotine content rule, and now, New Zealand. I don't actually know what kind of presence, if they're excited to assume they're something. But the other side of this is that 22nd Century has sort of positioned themselves from a narrative perspective as the company that's going to benefit the most from reduced nicotine cigarettes. But this is not new. Tobacco companies have been reducing nicotine content in cigarettes since the 50s or 40s even. I think it was the 50s and 60s when there was sort of that reducing nicotine, reducing tar. And they were, marketing their marketing statements about how they were safer now because they don't have as much nicotine and tar. And that, of course, was put to an end at some point because those are modified risk or therapeutic claims. But this is technology or a process that tobacco companies have in their portfolio. And if they thought it was going to make them money, they would sell reduced nicotine cigarettes. But it's 22nd Century does not have a corner on the market. Anyway, that's some hilarious stuff. And if you haven't checked out the thread from AVM, go check it out. It's insightful with teeth as usual. Always good threads from AVM. So that was 22nd Century, and also sort of in keeping with this theme of FDA rules and stuff. Like I mentioned, we participated in the listening session that was back in August. It was, I think, the sort of FDA critics to FDA supporters was like 5-1. We vastly outnumbered any of the usual groups. You had your usual suspects of truth, and I don't know if Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids had somebody speak. There were some of the body parts groups spoke, and just the standard kind of like take care of this, ban flavors, do that. Nothing new from their camp. But there were a lot of folks that were representing. There were law enforcement. There were people from Black community speaking up and urging the FDA to reconsider a ban on menthol. And of course, we also had in July this letter from some Republican members of Congress warning against banning menthol and what may happen with Mexican cartels. As far as I know, this is already happening. We have, California, Massachusetts. I don't know did New Jersey finalize a menthol ban yet? And so it's likely already happening. I can't remember if there've already been reports about this. Certainly in California, but it's already shifting to organized crime and the cartels supplying the demand, which doesn't go away just because you wave a pencil and ban menthol. And so the other part of this, though, and the fact that this is a partisan letter, and I just kind of want to, there's I guess a need to kind of measure the statements here. The Republicans seem wedded to this idea that they're going to defeat the Democrats in 2024 with this narrative that Joe Biden's open border policy is allowing all the Mexican cartels to do all this blah, blah, blah. There's another dangerous narrative out there that Republicans are glomming onto, which is fentanyl coming from China. This is all Joe Biden's fault. Fentanyl, magically, fentanyl just appeared on our shores. It hasn't been here since the mid 2000s. So it's all Joe Biden's fault. But it's a narrative that we've seen at least one tobacco company kind of latch themselves to. and promoting this idea that Chinese-made vapor products, closed system products, are coming into the United States and they may be laced with fentanyl. I think there may have been reports about this, but it's not a widespread issue. And I know that we've talked about this before. I think Ryan Marino had a thread about this on Twitter. There's always that possibility that vaping fentanyl is a form of harm reduction. The dose is more manageable. You don't have to deal with an injection drug. And so there are actually potentially harm reduction avenues that anybody in the drug harm reduction world should probably be paying attention to. And it would be a shame if a tobacco company stepped all over that potentially very promising innovation in saving lives. So bringing that up mainly because those are part of those are two narratives that, while there is some truth and concern, at least to the cartels getting involved in selling menthol cigarettes and flavored vapor products, it is largely partisan. All of that to say, certainly more work needs to be done to clarify this issue and take it out of the polarized political discussion that we find ourselves in all of the time. So I'm glossing over stuff because you guys have stuff to talk about.
It's okay.
Well, I've got one here, and thank you, Kristen. I was really busy when it came to kind of figuring out what we were going to talk about today, and Kristen took the time to really compile a list and highlighted a few things that she thought I'd be able to speak to. So thank you, and I can, and this ties kind of right into that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do a little bit of live magic right here. The National Coalition of Justice Practitioners unite against the FDA proposed ban on menthol cigarettes, which, like you had discussed, Alex, Black and Hispanic law enforcement executives and experts. Really, the big thing here is inequity. This comes down to Black and Latino and Hispanic communities using menthol cigarettes or smoking menthol cigarettes at higher rates than white communities do, and this ban affecting them disproportionately. And so, I mean, this is one of many groups that have been outspoken against this. And I don't really have a whole lot to add, really, to be honest with you. I'll share this article right in the chat. But 3 unintended consequences, which we've discussed ad nauseum about this menthol ban. Anything you ban becomes illegal, and it's a policing issue. Enforcement of the menthol ban will be more urban and Latino communities and used as a tool in racial profiling, stop and frisk, and arrests. And the police do not need another reason to stop and frisk that leads to life-threatening casualties in the Black community. And if you really want our position, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop this article here for people. If I can figure out how to do things like copy and paste.
I'll add the links to the description later on too.
But for folks who are here right now, if I can, I'm going to throw that right into the chat for folks on YouTube or Facebook watching. I don't know what my computer's trying to do right now. But yeah, we've been over this at nauseum. CASAA has also put out an official statement about the menthol ban. We put it out in May of 2021. So it's been around for a long time. You can find that on our site as well as, it's I guess I can read this from our actual release, which really just kind of sums up a lot of things. CASAA acknowledges that consumer demand for menthol is primarily driven by marketing practices spanning decades and targeting some communities more than others. Specifically, tobacco companies have marketed aggressively to Black, LGBTQ, and low-income communities, even in the face of research showing that these groups are disproportionately more likely to experience negative consequences of smoking due to pre-existing health inequities such as limited access to health healthcare, including systemic prejudice within the healthcare system, absolutely, and race and class motivated city planning and zoning laws. While there are notable benefits from removing menthol and other flavors from combustible tobacco, such as some people who smoke menthol cigarettes may quit tobacco and nicotine use altogether, a ban does not eliminate consumer demand, and it cannot protect consumers from informal sellers and counterfeit products. Pressuring people to purchase goods in an underground market actually exposes consumers to greater immediate risk. And I could not literally say that any better than we did. And I've got the wrong to do it. It's been so long, you guys. Cut me a break here. But yeah, like this is just something that we've discussed ad nauseum. It's a horrible idea. It's going to lead, down the exact same road as any other prohibition is led down. It's more policing. It's more immediate concerns. And, we've talked up and down about the risks in just, the illicit market across the board, who you're buying from, what you're buying, the situations you're going to be putting yourself in. And FDA, has this kind of hands-off deal where, we're not going to, go out and arrest people who are smoking menthol cigarettes, but the demand remains. The supply has to come from somewhere, and it still puts people at risk at the end of the day. And again, disproportionately, Black communities, LGBTQ communities, and the such. So I'm going to share this as well, just to kind of expand off of what Alex was just talking about.
While you're bringing that up, one of the other things that happened this summer was that Truth Initiative put out their statement and how that the menthol ban was going to help with all these health inequities, because the menthol is what caused all these inequities. I mean, that's essentially what they were suggesting,
They just whitewashed it is all they did. It's a white savior complex. Whitewashing is exactly all that is. And it's just gross, as most things are from them.
Well, we tweeted, they put all these stats out. Oh, they have health inequities. These certain groups have, health inequities, and they have these different issues. And I went and I linked in our tweet about it to the CDC that has a whole page on health inequities, which were all listed there. And not once did that page mention menthol. So those things existed already without the menthol. That's the thing that I thought was crazy. And they were like trying to make it like it was all about the menthol,
Yeah, and that's why, in that statement, we were very deliberate in including kind of the range of causes of the health inequities, including city planning and zoning ordinances, which put, communities of color and other, low-income communities, they're the people who end up with, toxic, heavy industrial stuff in their backyard, or they're on the part of town where like the water cleanup effort hasn't quite reached them yet. Their streets haven't been redesigned. There aren't enough trees. They're food deserts. All of these things have their roots in America's horrible legacy of racism and discrimination. And those are things, yes, cigarettes are not great for our health. That's why we're all here. But there are underlying factors that are human caused that banning menthol isn't going to address any aspect of those.
No, not at all.
And here's one thing too. Have either one of you have you ever seen a study that shows that these groups prefer menthol or, smoke because of the menthol versus menthol's just their preference in smoking? I've never seen a study where they tried to determine how menthol got so ingrained in these groups. Because don't tell me it's just because they advertise menthol. Companies don't just randomly pick something and say, oh, we're going to target this group with this particular thing that we have. No, they say, whoa, all these more people are buying menthol in this area. So now we're going to just heavily advertise there. So I feel like it's the menthol. They already lean towards menthol, but they were already going to smoke. And so this whole idea that they wouldn't smoke if they didn't have the menthol, show me the study. The FDA wants us to have all these studies about vaping. Show me the study that shows that menthol has anything to do with them smoking. I haven't seen one.
I think it's, this is kind of like a language, like they sort of shift back and forth from talking about, people being victims of tobacco company marketing. And then they also use the word prefer. so that, the flavor is something that a lot of people, I smoked menthols for a long time, and I can, as someone who used to smoke menthols, I can kind of buy into the narrative that, because of the menthol flavor, because it is more pleasurable to me than smoking a regular cigarette, that like my motivation to quit was affected by that, I didn't get the displeasure of smoking a regular cigarette, and instead was able to offset some of that with the taste of menthol. So I smoked for longer. I mean, I can see that being plausible, and so I'm not going to dismiss that outright. But I think it's sort of what I think I heard you say, which is that they put the product out there because fun, it's menthol, and then they discovered that certain communities were buying them more, and so they focused their marketing to sell more cigarettes. And that's standard.
Yeah, why would any company pump more money into their advertising
in that area,
in areas where those products aren't selling?
Yeah,
I mean, you may at first you may try that. Okay, maybe we need to up our marketing here to sell this product, but after a certain amount of time, you're going to continue. You're going to shift that funding over to where those products are already selling well to continue to increase your sales there. Like that's
comparing to like between Cools and Newports, you were trying to steal the Newport people from the Cool people or whatever, Cool people or whatever like that. So, I mean, and Alex, the funny thing is you say that, but if I had been forced to smoke menthol, I probably never would have smoked because I think it's disgusting. So, I mean, it's right?
And I've shared this before. Actually, when I was a kid, when I was in junior high and started smoking cigarettes, we could walk off campus to go to a little neighborhood grocery, and it turned out the guy was kind of creepy. But I bought Marlboro menthols because I knew that no one would want to bum them from me.
See,
that was my strategy. So I didn't start smoking menthols because I thought they were delicious. I just knew that I would be able to save money because I wasn't going to be giving them away.
Right. I still want to see that study that proves anything that people. It's like kids vape for the flavors. It's just as ridiculous that these groups smoke for the menthol.
At the end of the day, though, this menthol ban is just another drug war policy. It's just going to give police incentives to again stop, frisk, arrest, and potentially threaten or kill people in communities that are already under threat and over policed. This is just another, another part of the drug war, and it's unnecessary. It's not needed in any shape or form, regardless of whether you think menthol is a good thing or a bad thing. Prohibition just is never the answer here.
And the cops don't even want it. So
and again, the cops there. I mean, there are numerous law enforcement agencies besides just this one that have spoken out against this policy.
Mm-hmm. It's and all of that, and they're continuing. I mean, we're going to see more releases, more headlines about FDA getting closer to finalizing the rule. I think they were supposed to, I can't remember the date, but they were supposed to have it finalized at least, I think, soon, September or October of this year. That was their promise. So it keeps sounding like they're going to go forward with it, and then it'll probably be tied up. The estimate, I think, was a couple of years in court before it finally gets implemented. So it's one of those things, like, unless some sort of earth-shattering, highly credible bit of research, which I'm sure there's already tons of credible research saying why this is a bad idea, but unless there's something that really grabs, I don't know, executives at NBC's eye or something like that, I don't know that this is going to be successfully thwarted.
We have literally over 50 years of failed drug war statistics.
Right?
That can be
but those are those are different drugs. Those are the bad drugs.
It's different. Somehow it's different. Just like Sweden's different and England's different, and
it is.
All right, I'm sorry. We digress on Logan. He's got another story he wants to talk about.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Cocaine and heroin belong in this group together because those are hard drugs. Nicotine's over here. Menthol. These can be over here. Yeah, it's shameful. It's ridiculous. It's, it's just awful. So we can move on from there. But I wanted to throw that one in just because, it tied right into what Alex was talking about.
Definitely. So. That was good. Good segue.
I try. My wife's on a big kick right now because she just learned that the guy who invented the Segway died on a Segway. And so this is like her fun fact that she tells everyone like immediately for like the past week.
Your wife sounds like my husband. He loves to have useless information that nobody knows.
Yeah. For anybody who didn't know that, the guy who invented the Segway died on the Segway. He went off a cliff.
Ouch.
Oh
yeah. No. Yeah. Ouch. For sure. He died. It's
brutal.
Yeah. Not good. Not good. Anyways, Kristen.
Didn't you have one more story?
I do. I didn't know if we were taking turns, if this was like take turn story time.
Because I got to pull up my little slideshow and I don't want to do that more than once.
Okay, so the other article that Kristen highlighted for me, I'll go ahead and see if I can share the right screen this time. See if I can be a proper live streamer here on CASAA. There we go. Why some Minnesota treatment centers are going commercial tobacco free to improve health. So Alex and I had a really good discussion about this article. Unfortunately, Kristen, your computer was vexing you at the time, so I wasn't able to pick your brain about it. And I wasn't sure if you had read this with the intention of giving this story to me, thinking this was something similar to Philadelphia's ban in treatment centers.
Well, weren't they trying? We talked about it, I think, in the Skype chat when it first came out. And remember, I asked, wasn't it Philadelphia who reversed it? And now here's
they did. So Philadelphia, a number I want to say it was 2018 or 2019 had banned smoking in substance use treatment facilities, for lack of a better term, rehab centers, and it failed miserably. It prevented people, it de-incentivized people from going to treatment to begin with. It increased dropout rates. It was an abysmal failure. But this article here, which Kristen's going to share all the links to these in the description. I'm not going to keep trying to copy and paste because apparently I'm tech illiterate today. But why some Minnesota treatment centers are going commercial tobacco free to improve health. This headline, I feel like, is kind of misleading to what the rest of the article says. Really, this article, it does talk about Black, Indigenous communities, along with members of the LGBTQ community and individuals with mental health or substance use disorder, continue to be disproportionately impacted by the deadly harms of commercial. It should be really ultimately smoking. While this is true, smoking is the leading cause of early death for individuals with mental illness. Only 40% of Minnesota's mental health treatment facilities and 31% of substance use disorder treatment programs offer tobacco treatment. Approximately 25% of adults in the U.S. have a mental health condition or substance use disorder, yet this population consumes 40% of all cigarettes sold. We've discussed this quite a bit in the past as well. People who suffer from serious mental illness smoke at disproportionately higher rates than other communities do. This article really ultimately is talking about, promoting abstinence is part of this, but they are talking about working to increase the number of mental health and substance use disorder programs that offer tobacco treatment and I guess have tobacco-free grounds. I guess this is where this one tiny little line in here that have tobacco-free grounds. But otherwise, really, if this doesn't happen right here, which is what failed miserably in Philadelphia, because this is just disincentivizes. I can't word.
Disincentivize.
There we go. Thank you. People from getting into treatment or staying in treatment altogether. The rest of this is really discussing the addition of offering treatment alongside other substance use, which I don't see any issue with. If an individual is already seeking treatment for substance use, and alongside that, they also want to receive help or treatment in quitting smoking, that's a tool in the toolbox for people. And I'm all for that. As long as it's not coercive, as long as people are not being forced to quit smoking alongside the other challenges that they're trying to overcome, that's a positive thing. That's a good thing. You know, if these options are made available to people already there, that's a fantastic thing. I would love to see harm reduction encouraged alongside that, you know, alongside treatment options. Here's all of the options. Here's all the tools in the toolbox. What can we do to help you? Like, what's your goals? What are you trying to achieve here? And how can we do that? That's a good thing. If this goes down the road of Philadelphia, it's just going to fail. It's going to be horrible. And it's not going to help people. It may help some, but it's not going to help the overwhelming majority. Again, Philadelphia is the prime example of this. But for the most part, this really talks about, you know, a bill passed earlier this year that expands the type of providers that can be reimbursed for providing tobacco treatment to people with Medicaid, new tobacco treatment specialists in different organizations that were trained. Again, I can't say this enough. If it's a ban on grounds, it's going to fail. It's not going to help people. If this ultimately comes down to providing additional options for individuals, then it will succeed. And I guess that's really, you know, my biggest point here is, you know, we constantly talk about tools in the toolbox for people, and this would be one of those tools in the toolbox.
My problem, can I just say, I think I'm reading more between the lines on that than maybe you have been. And as I read that, I thought, okay, there's funding. Funding is going to be available to get people to quit smoking. Now they're going to want that funding. Now they're going to want more people to quit smoking. So there's going to be the added pressure to get these people to also quit smoking. And I can see, if they're not careful, that the motivation is going to be there for them to have rules like, well, if you're going to be in a treatment center, you also have to go through tobacco cessation therapy, whether you want to or not. You know, things like that. So they're going to offer it. It's going to be something they're offering, but we just know how these people, how their brains work. And they're like, oh, well, they're not going to do it voluntarily. And we get funding if they do it. So we're going to have to maybe make it a stipulation on getting their services. Now that they have to quit before they get in, which is ultimately what failed in Philly, but also force them that, no, you can't even be on nicotine at all. You can't vape even, you know.
Yeah. So again,
and that's what that's the part that kind of makes me go,
So I've got a couple things to add there. I went through drug and alcohol treatment about 15 years ago, and where I went, smoking was allowed. So this is the mid 2000s, and they offered kind of like a 12-step version of nicotine cessation, and so you could go to a Nicotine Anonymous meeting, but I don't remember ever being offered nicotine gum or any NRT. And they took my antacids away when I checked in, because there were issues where, I guess you have people coming in with body image issues. Also the idea that I may start abusing antacids because I needed to like fill an empty hole where the drugs were, kind of thing. I'm not totally clear on the rationale, but so that was that. And so even if treatment facilities are not offering nicotine replacement therapy because of fears of somehow supporting drug-seeking behavior, again, it's been 15 years, so I hope that things have changed in treatment facilities. It's hard to imagine them being open to providing things like bottles of e-liquid. But there was a person who was doing that. Father Jack Carney was involved in getting used or sort of overstocked vape products to people in treatment facilities in California. And I hope he had some success with that. But Father Jack is no longer with us, so we can't ask him in person, unfortunately. But he kept that going for a while. But yeah, I mean, this is all about, you know, when someone gets to the point where they're checking themselves into a treatment facility, their life is in danger. And the priority is, let's take care of the things that are immediately putting your life in danger, which is going to be alcohol and other drugs. And so the focus is on that. And cigarettes, take decades to really kill you. So it's sort of like, I know that there's research out there. I don't have anything on the tip of my fingers, but when people make some sort of, sort of health positive choice to improve their health, and they accomplish that little goal, like whatever it is, it's just like, okay, I want to stop having heartburn. I'm going to change my diet, or I'm going to exercise a little bit more, or something like that. They start to see other opportunities to change, and they start making other healthy choices. And so I don't know that anybody's ever looked at the vaping community and done research on, I feel like I have seen this somewhere though. Kristen, you would probably know that, when somebody switches from smoking to vaping, they're more likely to start adopting other healthy behaviors. They're more likely to start exercising. We've seen people, I've done it too. We've seen people, I did this out of rehab. I came out of rehab still smoking cigarettes. I was down to a pack a day, and everything in for alcohol and cocaine to how can I address my addiction to cigarettes. And it took a long time, but if e-cigarettes had been around in 2007, 2008, the kind that actually worked, and if I had a different view of the products than I did in 2008, I would have switched sooner. But I used nicotine gum. I actually used snus for a little while. I kept on that program, and I've told my story about nicotine replacement several times. But the point is that when people do make some sort of positive health choice in their life, they're more likely to start doing more. And really, if you want people to follow that path, it doesn't pressure, coercion, all those things. That's not what people need. I don't need to be confronted with a brick wall every time I maybe kind of step out of line. I need encouragement. I need support. And like you said, Logan and Kristen, and all of us have agreed on this, as long as it's presented as an option that people can choose to do, I think the outcomes are going to be much better.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and that's really what I wanted to highlight out of this is if this is a ban on the grounds, if this is coercive, if it's something along those lines, it's just going to fail, when you take that away from people. I know, personally, and I've discussed this in dealing with, quitting meth. Cigarettes were my fallback. If it wasn't for cigarettes, man, I don't know what I would have done. If I'd have tried quitting cigarettes at the same time, we might not be here having this conversation right now. So if this is presented again as an option to people, as a tool in the toolbox for people already seeking help, and maybe, they want to continue down that and moved, okay, I've done this, I've accomplished this goal, and now I want to seek help getting this, accomplishing this goal. I'm all for that. That should be a no-brainer for everybody here, that's a positive thing for people. Right. But yeah, like Kristen said, if it's a money motivated situation to force people to quit smoking alongside tackling all of these massive challenges in their life, that's a bad thing. That's just a bad thing.
And we've just seen that so much before. It just immediately my little antennas went up and went, oh, they're going to get funding for doing this.
Yeah. So I think this is just something, we'll try to keep an eye on as far as Minnesota's treatment centers go and what they're going to end up doing in the long run. Hopefully this is a tool in the toolbox and not a, not a hammer.
So Mark is saying there's a recent study on this. Mark, you're going to have to give us some more details.
Paint with a broad brush there, Mark.
Right?
Yeah, so Kristen, we've got about 10 minutes left.
I know, that's why I want to get into that's why I want to get into mine here. I'm just going to do a real quick recap of some of the highlights of the studies that came out over the summer. There was a few good ones, and I didn't have time to do all of them. I knew I wasn't going to have time to do all of them, but
but you came with slides, so kudos.
I threw those together this morning. The first one, it came out of Canada, and it says among individuals attempting, I'm going to give you guys all links to this. Among individuals attempting to quit smoking, nicotine e-cigarettes are more efficacious.
Efficacious, yeah.
I did it. I got
it. I can't say de-incentivized, but I can say
then. So basically, they're more effective than conventional nicotine replacement or behavioral smoking cessation therapies, and may prove beneficial in reducing smoking-related health risks. So that was awesome. Got another one. Just add it to the pile that they're ignoring. Another one that came out was helping pregnant smokers quit. This one found that in pregnant smokers seeking help, compared to nicotine patches, e-cigarettes are probably more effective and do not pose more risk to birth outcomes assessed in this study, and may reduce the incidence of low birth weight. So there's the whole I mean, if it barely affects a pregnant woman and a fetus, I mean, come on, people. But teens, flavors. Another one was, this one was a really good one. Why is that staying on there?
We've got a different slide if you're not looking at a different one.
Yeah, I just don't know why oops, that's not what I want to do. Why is the slide thing showing? Are you still seeing slide 2 below it, or do you see it just the slide? Am I just seeing the slide thing, the arrow?
No, we have the slide up.
No, I mean the arrow is showing. That must just be on mine for tool. Okay, it's blocking part of what I want to read. Okay, so another good one was the effect of unguided e-cigarette provision on uptake, use, and smoking, blah, blah, blah. Really hard to understand. This one came out of the United States. It was published in a sort of a sub-journal of The Lancet. And it says, unguided e-cigarette use also leads to smoking cessation. Even people, and I added this little part here, even people who had entered the trial saying they had no intention of quitting, allaying the notion that causal effects of e-cigarettes on cessation are not reflective of real-world scenario of self-determined use. Okay, all that basically comes to mean that a lot of the anti-vaping people are saying, well, yeah, maybe they're doing better, people who want to quit smoking under clinical trials, because they're already motivated to quit smoking and they're under these strict guidances. And with this, and then that's why the e-cigarettes are doing better than other stuff. So they're kind of backtracking, because for a long time they just said it doesn't help, and now all the stuff is coming out saying, yeah, it does help. Well, you need clinical trials. Well, here's some clinical trials that show it does help. Well, clinical trials aren't real life. It's like they're doing everything. So what this one showed was basically they just handed them e-cigs and said, you can use them, you don't have to use them, whatever you want to do. And even doing it that way, and then sent them out into the world, and people were still using and quit smoking. A lot of us call those accidental quitting, stuff like that. So basically it said, yeah, you guys, we're busting you on that one too. It doesn't matter if it's in a clinical trial. In the real world, they're still doing better. They're still quitting smoking, even if they had no intention of quitting smoking. So that was a really powerful one. I thought we need a lot more like that. And then below that one is e-cigarette support for smoking cessation, identifying the effectiveness of intervention components in an online randomized, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this one they looked at the key takeaway of this one, which I underlined with tailored advice on flavor, is that text messaging, and this one came out of the UK, is text messaging support to quit smoking, some programs like that. They did okay, but when they got help and advice with e-cigs on flavors, go ahead, get a flavor, try this flavor, do a different flavor, they found that it was a lot more successful. And again, of course, this is with adults. So of course, adults like flavors. Hello. So that was that one. So some good stuff came out over the summer. A lot of this stuff is on our blog if you guys want to see that. So now the bad. Okay, so this is really the bad, but it also has spin. Every single bad study, you guys need to remember this, is just about every single bad study that comes out, you can dig into it and find how they're spinning it so they don't tell you how e-cigs were actually better. In this one, they decided that, or they said they found that arterial sclerosis, thrombosis, and vascular biology. So basically how it affects the heart and stuff like that, that e-cig users, had increased risk of these things, as did smoking. And that's what all the headlines said. E-cigs can affect the heart, e-cig, that's what all came out when you read the headlines. But when you go and you dig into the actual study, because the headlines were all there's more harm from vaping. Here you go, more harm. Well, it even says in the quote above there is where it says that, there was less alterations were detected in the blood from e-cigarette users. Future studies are necessary to determine whether these findings are attributable to a residual effect of prior smoking or direct effect of current e-cig use. So that right there are keywords saying they didn't really split up the dual users from the exclusive e-cigarette users, because they're saying there might have been residual, or they had no idea how long it was before that they had smoked before. So it could be that all these things that they're seeing, this increased risk, came from the fact that they smoked for 40 years before they switched to vaping. They don't know. But of course, all the headlines said vaping causes this, But they also did find in there, which was downplayed, that those who switched to vaping had a significantly lower adverse result. They had two different things that they were tracking. One was 40% lower and one was 50% lower than those who had smoked. So even with all of that, nobody, of course, talked about the fact that harm reduction, this was harm reduction. They had less symptoms because they switched fully to vaping. So, of course, they didn't talk about that. But that was a spin on that one. Some of these just make me pull my hair out. And then there was this one that talked about how e-cigarette aerosol and cigarette smoke, the toxic effects on the cardiovascular, gastrointestinal, and renal systems in mice. Of course, in mice, you remember our little mouse vaping guy, he's not people. But, they start with this. This one came out of China. It says that both e-cigarettes and cigarette smoke, that's EC and CS, reduced blood oxygen saturation. And of course, all the headlines were all about how e-cigarettes did this too, right? So they're not 100% safe. Not that anybody ever claimed that. But it says, and cigarette smoke seems to be more harmful. It was a lot more harmful. It was significantly more harmful. They always downplay that difference between the e-cigarette and the cigarette smoke. It was significantly less harmful. And in addition, both e-cigarettes and cigarette smoke exposure caused certain damage to the gastrointestinal tract of mice, but cigarette smoke exhibited more harm to the oral cavity than e-cigarette smoke. So, literally they're saying this is harm reduction. Cigarette smoke did more damage than e-cigarettes. So that was a spin. Compared with cigarette smoke, the e-cigarettes had significantly fewer negative effects on most of the indicators that they had, if you read the study, which was the focus of the study. And in some cases, vaping was, and it says this in the study, was comparable to the control group. Guess what the control group is? Never smokers. So how they can keep saying, but they, of course, that's why they latch onto they advertise it as safe. Nobody's ever advertised it as safe. It's an outright lie that it was ever advertised as safe. Okay, so we did the good, bad, the ugly. This one actually is kind of pretty to me, because if you look at the bottom there, retracted. We had another one that got retracted, and this happened over the summer. In this one, they claim that their study found that despite low frequency of e-cigarette use in respondents, basically they said the results, they put out publicly that the results show that e-cigarette users were associated with higher odds of having liver disease compared to non-smokers. However, the survey data that they used didn't ask those questions. It asked one question. It said, have you ever used an e-cigarette? Well, how do you determine if vaping caused something if they said, yeah, I tried one in 2013? You can't, it doesn't work that way, guys. And then the survey data also didn't allow for analysis around timing, meaning it's impossible to tell whether somebody developed the liver disease before or after they began smoking and or vaping. So again, we've seen this one before where the data they had, they didn't say, well, did you get the liver disease after you started vaping? Some of these people had the liver disease for decades before they started vaping, and they were just included, lumped in, and all that. We had some good scientists who cried foul on that one, and that one got retracted. And boy, did those, it's hysterical. If you read here's a filter article I will share with in the links, that those guys just like ran and hid after like they were trying to get a hold of them. They're like, can you tell me what? Oh, they didn't answer our questions. One guy told, I forget who wrote the filter article. Oh, I don't remember. But anyhow, he said that they were contacted. Oh, we'll get back to you next week. Never got back to him. It was just, they just kind of ran away, straight away like mice. So that was great. So there actually was some good stuff. Even the bad stuff can be good. And I know a lot of people sometimes in the Facebook groups and stuff, I'll share stuff like that. And they're like, why do you share this stuff? It's just garbage. I'm sharing it because every time I share it, I always put an explanation in there as to what it actually showed. And 9 times out of 10, it shows harm reduction. Even if it shows some harm, it shows harm reduction. And sometimes it shows that there's no difference at all. And that's for you guys to learn from. And so when you're on Twitter or something and somebody, it's even safe for mice. When somebody shares that study, you'll have that in your little ammunition bag saying, no, it doesn't show that. And it also shows harm reduction, which is what we're always arguing. So that's why we share those things, so that you guys have an opportunity to learn from it and have a rebuttal set up for it as well. But so always, if you see a study come out, come check and see if we've talked about it, because usually I'll put something in there that'll explain it, sometimes a little bit more in depth on Facebook, because I've got more space than I do on Twitter. But you can check it out there. So
if
that's
you want
what happened
more space
this summer
on Twitter, you just have to pay Elon for it.
Yeah, right.
And I refuse.
Or do all those threads.
I'm sorry. If you want more space on X.
I'm sorry. I'm not calling it.
I still call it Twitter. I also refuse to call it X.
Bill is like, it's the platform Twitter, and the URL is still Twitter.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the bird.
I was a big fan of that little short era where like the logo and the name had changed, but everything else on Twitter was still like retweet, tweet this, quote, tweet. Everything was still there. Now it's like repost and stuff.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for that rundown, Kristen. And as I was listening to you go through that, I figured that feels like something that should maybe be a regular feature on our podcast here. So if you are up for the challenge, I think your review of some of the good and the bad and the ugly of the research was really good. And I'm sure that everybody tuning in would benefit from that. So more of that, please. Good job. Well, I
the colors that you chose for that slide presentation too. Yeah. Yeah. Way to work those CASAA colors right in there.
So I
guess to make Danielle happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're sort of coming to the end here, and I did want one more thing and maybe good news for the end here. Let's see if I can get this up. Here we go. An excellent article from Colin Mendelsohn that came out this summer, Time to Change the Way We Look at Youth Vaping. I'm not going to get into a whole breakdown here of all of the arguments that he makes, but certainly this is an excellent overview of all of the arguments that we've seen lobbed against vaping, sort of on behalf of the children. And debunking a lot of these claims, obviously, as Kristen has done several times, as CASAA has done, Lindsay Stroud over at the Taxpayers Protection Alliance has also done excellent work as information comes out, putting things into context so you can actually see that this is not some unimaginable crisis of youth health. And this article is certainly a very digestible version of all of that work. And I think if there was anything that I wanted to add to this, first of all, this is a very important conversation because it is sort of it's kind of a third rail. Nobody wants to touch it because as soon as you start talking about any whiff of like allowing kids to use drugs, immediately shuts down anybody's attention to what you're saying. But you know, the reality is that no matter how much we want to discourage it, kids get into things. Like I said, I started messing around with cigarettes and other drugs when I was 13 years old. And there was no marketing, as far as I could tell, that was really pointed at me. In fact, in talking about Newport ads, the only ads I saw were of preppy adults on sailboats with their goofy shoes, looking like they were made of money, and that this was just absolutely the life. And I didn't agree with any of that. And I don't know a lot of kids who are just like, yeah, sailboats. I mean, maybe, I guess, whatever. But that was not directed at me. So anyway, I think one of the things that's being pointed out in this article that I think is really important that I actually said many years ago to a congressional staffer before there was really any data on this, was that young people who are experimenting with e-cigarettes or maybe even habitually use e-cigarettes in high school or wherever they are, they're more likely to quit. They're going to have an easier time giving this up when they want to. And that's a really important marker. The other thing is, I think, in order to move forward with this conversation, we have to stop pretending in a way or subscribing to this make-believe that if we give kids any kind of license, or if we have an adult conversation about harm reduction and are honest about the relative risks among tobacco products, that somehow kids are going to take that as license to go use the products. I know I don't have kids. I'm not going to try to speak for parents here. And I know that the idea of, give them an inch and they'll take the whole foot, that stuff kind of applies. But at the population level, it's not happening. We're not seeing this. We're really just seeing a bunch of people misinformed about what they can do to improve their health. And so ultimately, to try to boil this down so we can end our show here, it's all about being honest. Kids can spot a lie. They know when you're putting them on. So I think we need to get over the fear and the fairy tale kind of reality of, trying to me, I equate all of this kind of subterfuge and misdirection about the real truth about harm reduction as like trying to keep kids believing in Santa Claus until they're 25. That's not good for anybody. And it's a massive lie. And I don't think that leads to good public health outcomes, especially when, first of all, kids have access to way more information than any of us did when we were 13, 14 years old. So they can go Google this stuff on their own. And they're going to grow up with a much more robust distrust of the authorities and are less likely to listen to potentially life-saving information that these federal and state and local agencies are tasked with disseminating when it matters the most. Well,
it's like that. I mean, what they're going to get their information from are these TikTok influencers who are telling them smoking's cool again and don't vape because it's uncool. I mean, that's where they're going to get their information from, because that's what they're getting it from now. And it's like telling, kids, we can't tell kids that condoms make sex safer because that might give them license to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I have teens. I've raised teens. And the thing is if you tell them, this is a safer thing to do, you've got this continuum of risk, and here's a safer thing to do, they're still going to go out and try the worst thing. That's just what they do. I mean, it is. And remember, when this all started, vaping was for old people trying to quit smoking, was completely uncool. It wasn't until Truth and all the other kind of groups said, oh, all your friends are doing it. It comes in kid-friendly flavors. You can hide it from your teachers, better than smoking, and do it in the bathroom. And they literally show kids in the bathroom. That's when all of a sudden it became cool for the kids, So it's, as soon as you tell them don't do it is when they're going to do it, So, I mean, if we went out and told them all, you should smoke, don't vape, they'll all start vaping, instead. It's just teenagers. That's what they are.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was, they were ads, they were commercials, and I couldn't tell you if they were truth or the real cost or who put them on. But I remember, Alex, you just talked about this is going to be an easier habit for youth to quit than smoking. Were these ads that would show, an interview with a teenager who was like, I can't get out of bed without hitting my vape. I can't function in school without my vape. I can't do anything without my vape. So I quit vaping.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I just quit.
Every time I would see these, I'm just like, none of that makes sense, right? No. Like you're so
addicted,
deep into this, hardcore addiction to your vape, so you just quit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I guess that's
they have no idea.
Whenever I hear that, when we talk about like this is going to be easier to quit, I always go to those commercials that were somehow meant to portray, this harsh, horrible, quote unquote addiction to vaping. So quit.
And
so
you know,
what I mean? Like it's just so asinine.
I don't know.
And like whoever directed and produced that, it just.
No, I'm sure it looked perfect to the propagandists. It's because all they got to do is focus on, you know, and this is also sort of in conjunction with the Truth Initiative's text-based app that, you know, if you're a young person, you can download the app on your phone and it'll remind you or send you helpful tips or like whatever it does. You can text with a real person, all of the things. They have since come out and you know, made some headlines or press release about how successful their app is. Well, it's not because it's doing anything really innovative or new. Just because you take someone, you know, badgering you to quit using a thing into an app, like the only innovation there isn't actually an innovation done by Truth Initiative. It's done by the people who invented the mobile phone and updated it year over year to do more features, and you can play Candy Crush on it. And also get hounded by somebody who wants you to quit using a nicotine product. It's that, as we have just, you know, discussed here, it's actually going to be a lot easier for kids to give that habit up. And so, you know, fine if they want to use something to help them quit for some support and encouragement, but the app can't possibly claim all of that credit. And certainly, I think, you know, there is research out there about this. And we need to see more of it. The FDA is going to want to see more of it, and I think all of this goes to, you know, changing the narrative about how we address not just nicotine use among kids, but all drugs, all risky behaviors. So
some of the on the article, the one from the New Yorker about the influencers in smoking, I did see on comments on quite a few of those where they were like, yeah, I was vaping all the time and that was just so bad. So, you know, I just switched to smoking because I smoked less than I vaped. You know, and it's just like, God.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we keep seeing examples of this. You know, the press release from Illinois, I think some of the research that you pointed to, just that whole like kind of that equivocation on not equivocation, the sort of waffling on, you know, smoke may be more harmful than vaping. Right. Like that's ridiculous. So there's going to be a lot of work.
The spin at the end of the day will be, well, you see, we told you all along that vaping would lead them all to smoking.
Yeah, because they can't vape.
It wasn't our mountain of disinformation. It wasn't our constant puppet commercials. It wasn't any of these things. It was what we told you all along.
And it had nothing to do with the policies that they've been lobbying for.
Yeah, none of that's, they're just going to gloss.
It wasn't because we took their flavors away.
It was just what we said all along.
Yep.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. Yep. And for the record, I believe CASAA has been saying something along these lines since at least 2014. So we were there.
Well, I know you wanted to end on like a super high positive note.
I mean, this is a relatively a good note. I recommend everybody go, if you want to feel better about things, go out and read Colin Mendelsohn's article. It's a win.
Yeah. I don't think we can recommend Colin Mendelsohn in any capacity enough. Like, yeah.
He's awesome. He's fighting the good fight down there.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So
I think is on that note, you guys, I haven't done a spiel in so long.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Okay, I just gotta shake some of the rust off really quick. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you to all of the replay watchers out there on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being with us for this, I guess, relaunch, whatever you want to call it, of
season opener
CASAA Live. This is a bi-weekly show, so we will be here every other Saturday, unless things happen. Every now and again, we need to take a week off for whatever reasons, but otherwise we will be here. We typically kind of rotate the cast here on this show as well, so it may not always be all three of us. It may just be two of us. But every 2 weeks, check it out. Come join us. Tune in. Share this all over the place. Share it everywhere. Share it in your groups and on social media and all over the place. Oh, God, what else do I have to say? Oh, CASAA.org. How about that? How about the whole website? How about we talk about the entire organization for a second? Check out CASAA.org. If you're not a member, do it. Become a member. It's absolutely free. We don't flood your inbox with emails, just everything you need to know when you need to know it to get involved, to stay ahead, to stay informed. Check out the site, become a member, check out our merch. Danielle Jones has made some incredible merch. You get to be a walking billboard of tobacco harm reduction. Or if you are so inclined to donate to CASAA, we absolutely appreciate it. We put it all to good work, we promise. Other than that, I don't know. I
think you got it. I think you got everything.
I got it. I don't know what else there is.
Do the social medias. We're on Instagram, Facebook.
We're all over the place.
Formerly known as Twitter.
I was going to say if there's a social media, we're on it, but there's definitely social medias that exist that we're not.
Yeah, there's a few.
But the major ones.
We have a bandwidth issue.
X, formerly known as Twitter. I still call it Twitter. Instagram. It's all at CASAA Media. Go check it out. I think that's it. I think that's all the things. I think that's all the things. I think we can end the show. I don't end the show. I'm going to leave that to Kristen because every time I try to end this show, it goes horribly wrong. So be excellent to each other. Be excellent to yourselves, everyone. And we will be back 2 weeks from now. Same time, same place, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. All the other time zones is up to you. I don't do time zones.
Bye.